Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Partnering to Make a Difference. This is our last session in the three-part series. We will definitely be working with Attendance Works again on some additional training. We're glad to have you all here this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. Go ahead, Sue.
Thank you, Aveen, and thank you everybody for hanging in with us for the summer, meeting with us every Tuesday morning. Welcome back to session 3. So today we're going to wrap up by talking about valuable partnerships that can help amplify our work. Today it's going to be myself and Angela Duran who will be leading this session. And I wanted to take just a moment to introduce Angela a little bit more to y'all. You got to know Lori in the past 2 sessions and a bit of her background as a leader in Cleveland Public Schools, a district administrator focusing on attendance and truancy and chronic absence. So Angela, I want to share with you, our organization is blessed to be able to pull in senior fellows from across the country that help to bring their expertise. And I'm sharing this because at the end with the parking lot, in case you have any specific questions for her, in her background, I wanted you to know a little bit more about her. So Angela Duran has been a partner with Attendance Works for a long time, like about 7 or 8 years, I think. It's been a while. And she has helped to lead an initiative in the state of Arkansas focused on grade level reading. So really looking at all of the key factors that help to contribute to children being able to read on grade level by their elementary school career. So looking at birth strategies, birth to 3, looking at early education programming, ensuring that children have access to high quality early education, looking at issues around attendance, because we know when students aren't in school that they don't get the valuable lessons that they need to develop their literacy and numeracy skills, and also exploring expanded learning. What does summer learning look like? What do extended learning time opportunities look like? And a whole range of initiatives that really strengthen and empower and support families to be their child's first teachers. And so I wanted to share that so you knew a little bit more about Angela. And Angela, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add about Excel by 8, and then we'll move on.
No, just real quickly that my organization has expanded now and we're really looking deeply into health issues as well. And so that's certainly a big piece of attendance and chronic absence. So any questions about any of that, I'm glad to try to answer.
Great. Thank you, Angela. And so today, if you, we're going to just start again with introductions. We know most of you have been with us for all 3 sessions, but you just want to double check and see who's here and get to know who's in the audience today. And if there's any newcomers, please, wave your hand. And when you introduce yourself, your name and your role, if you could also share who is your favorite community partner that helps to support engaging students in school. And so we'll go ahead and look at the chat and see what partnerships you have out there. Let me pull up the chat. Personally, in Baltimore, when I started this work in 2008, one of our best partners was the Baltimore Urban Debate League, which are in several high schools and middle schools here in Baltimore City. And the young people in the Baltimore Urban Debate League helped us connect with other young people, hear what they were struggling with, and to help to organize strategies at the schools to support students being able to come to school every day. So it was a really exciting partnership. I see here we've got, oh, it's going so fast. Hi, Ms. Simmons, welcome. Local Pastor is our best community partner. Ginny said the Y, outdoor education organizations are great. We have the May Day program from Margaret. See, Tressa says the South Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice is working with her around attendance. Regina, welcome. Let's see, Sharon, welcome. County Parks works with Debbie in Charleston, South Carolina. That's great. Lots of engagement I see here and other partners outside of the school system that you're bringing in to help to support student attendance. Anyone else want to share? Yeah, we've got Elaine. Welcome. Department of Juvenile Justice with Laurie. That's great that they're working with you. Another community-based churches, Township Healthy Churches, military and MIC3 and MCEC as partners. I'm going to trust that y'all know what the acronyms stand for. Berkeley County government to identify work-based internships. That's fantastic. Young people are definitely more likely to come to school if they see the promise in it for them and how it connects to their futures. And so many young people that we've talked to in high school share that they're not sure how attending is relevant to them in their future. And so when you connect it to internships, when you connect it to career opportunities where they really see the lessons that they're learning in school will connect to their opportunities outside of school, that's incredibly important. We just want to say welcome again, and we're going to keep us moving along. Next slide. So over the past few sessions, and you can definitely please do keep sharing in the chat. It's really great to see the different partners, and then it might inspire somebody else to think of a partner that they hadn't thought of before. So over the past few sessions, we have talked about how to work as a team to take a multi-tiered approach to improve attendance at our schools. Session 1 focused on whole school engagement strategies. Session 2 dove into early intervention strategies. And today's session, we will cover partnering to make a difference. Next slide. Our goals for today's sessions include equipping participants to mobilize school staff, community and agency partners to provide support, and determining in your effort whether or not your efforts are making a difference. So we'll really focus on engaging staff, engaging community partners, and then how do you measure the effectiveness of the interventions you're putting in place. We know that we have covered a lot of information over the past 2 sessions. So we want to take a few moments to ground ourselves back in the concepts and the information that we shared previously before we move into our last 2 topics for learning. I'll do a quick review. We'll do a survey, a poll at the end of that review to get to hear from you about what you found most valuable in those sessions, and then we will move on to our new topics. So as we know, when there are high levels of chronic absence, it is an indicator that positive conditions for learning are missing, whether classes are in person, distance, or blended. We also know that relationships are at the center of these conditions for learning. We discussed, next slide, that absenteeism is both an indicator and a cause for educational inequity. Next slide. When we talk about chronic absence, we include students missing school for any reason, including excused absences, unexcused absences, and suspensions. Students are considered chronically absent if they miss 10% or more of their school days for any reason, for any of those 3 reasons combined. Next slide. During the pandemic, teaching and learning went from mostly in person to fully remote in a matter of weeks. Establishing relationships first is essential, and all else rests on this. When we have positive relationships, families are more likely to stay in contact. They're more likely to let schools know if they are having issues with connectivity or access to learning, or whether they need other kinds of supports. Even though many districts are returning to mostly or all in-person classes this fall, let us not forget the lessons we learned during the pandemic. If we need to go remote again, we want to be ready this time. We want to ensure that we're still monitoring and tracking this data and that we know we have up-to-date contact information for families. We also know in this moment, there was a moratorium against evictions and other housing and a moratorium against increasing housing instability for families. As those moratoriums roll back and families are still recovering from the pandemic, we could see increased mobility, an increased number of families that are doubled up or living with relatives. And so it will be essential coming into this school year to make sure we have that updated contact information, whether we're in person or not. Knowing where your children are, knowing where your families are going to be essential for our work to ensure that they're engaged and have access to learning. We also want to ensure that if we do have to switch to virtual learning, that we can do that without missing a beat. So continuing to maintain that information is essential to our work. We also discuss the importance of starting with prevention, strategies that impact the whole school, that the prevention strategies form the base of our pyramid and that each additional layer is additive, that we're adding support, we're adding universal prevention by ensuring we're communicating effectively with students and families about attendance and setting strong expectations for learning. And then we're layering in interventions as we discover what the challenges are that are keeping our young people out of school, so that the interventions we put in place are directly solving the problems that we know make it difficult for our families. And then we layer in our top intervention, which is when we're doing very intensive case management and perhaps pulling in agency partners or other community partners, as we were discussing earlier, for intensive support for students and families. And I also want to say that partners are important throughout the pyramid. So we have partners that help with prevention. We have partners that help to communicate information. We have partners that help to solve problems for groups of students. And then we have partners that are really there for individual students that are having the greatest challenges. Next slide. We discussed identifying which students need Tier 2 interventions and using evidence-based strategies to provide support. We also discussed the need to tailor our interventions to answer the specific needs and barriers that students and our families are experiencing. There are valuable tools available on our website, including this updated attendance playbook that provides the evidence base and specific steps that you can take to implement the different ideas that are in the playbook, along with examples of how those interventions have been implemented in other places. If you haven't taken a look yet, I encourage you to definitely take a peek at the playbook. There are a lot of really great ideas there. Next slide. We spoke last time about the need for a team approach. Next slide. The primary purpose of an attendance team is to organize and facilitate a school-wide attendance strategy and ensure it is an integral component of the school's plan to improve outcomes for all students. The goal is to organize everyone to participate in the work and to not have to do this by yourselves. When we reflect back on the conditions of learning, we recognize that there is no way any one person or even a small team of really highly effective individuals that are collaborating at the best level that can accomplish all of the elements or the key pillars of conditions of learning. So we organize, we facilitate, we set goals, we get really clear about what it is that our families and students need, and then we bring in other folks to help to support the plan, to help to weigh in on the plan, to help to define the plan. But ultimately, you need a group of folks to sort of cajole, encourage, inspire, and then we need everybody to join us in that effort. The team is for all students and not just the students that have the highest levels of absences. Next slide. Hopefully, if you didn't have a team, which I think most of you did when you replied in the last session, but if you didn't have a team, you're now thinking about taking steps to form a team. And that if you do have a team, our hope is that you have thought about who else to invite, who else to bring to the table to help to inform the strategies that you're putting in place to support all students and families in your school with improved and better attendance. Next slide. In session 2, we covered the first 3 functions of the team. We focused on looking at data to identify barriers that prevent students from attending school. And today we're going to focus on functions 4 and 5, mobilizing everyone in the school community to address attendance, and then determining if you're making a difference or how much of a difference you're making, because I'm sure you're always making a difference, but really being able to measure how much of a difference you're making and whether or not our strategies are working for who we intended them to work for, and what else we might need to layer in to further really encourage young people to be in school every day. So now I mentioned that we were going to do a quick review, so we did. And now we're to our poll, and this is where we really would appreciate your feedback. if you could share with us what has been most valuable to you from our first 2 sessions. And you can choose more than one, so pick maybe your top 2 or 3. And this really helps us to understand where your interests were and what was the greatest benefit from the past 2 sessions.
All right, the poll is live in the chat, so go ahead and make your selection.
I heard a little feedback there, so I'm not sure.
That might be me. I apologize. I'm going to mute for the moment.
Okay.
The cicadas are going wild in the neighborhood again, which I'm very excited because our Generation X brood left, but the new cicadas are in. So if you're from Maryland, you have to love cicadas.
It's like about 13, 14 people have voted. That's about 50%. Let's give a countdown now, if everyone will vote. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so we've got 18 people responding, overwhelmingly taking a multi-tiered approach to reducing absenteeism, beginning with prevention, has been the most valuable thing for folks. And then matching strategies to root causes. That's great. So kind of digging beneath, trying to figure out what's going on came in second. Okay.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. And MTSS, attendance MTSS is, I just think, the wave of the future and really helping and encouraging folks to understand that paying attention to attendance is about prevention and early intervention and not just intervening after a student has missed many, many, many days of school. So I'm really excited to hear. Ooh, that's not my static. I don't know whose static that is. But really pleased to hear that you agree that that's a valuable lesson to learn, and really hope that you can bring this information back to the schools and the districts you work with to really advance how we pay attention to attendance.
All right. Ready for me,
Next slide.
Sue? Oh, this is me, Sue.
I'm still on.
No, Sue, this is me.
It is you. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Angela.
All right. So as Sue just reviewed, the 4th team function is to mobilize everyone in the school community to address attendance. And when we talk about the school community, we are referring to everyone who impacts the school environment. So that's families, students, teachers, staff, administrators, and then all of the various community partners that y'all talked about earlier, and probably even some others that you didn't put in the chat. All right, next slide. All right, we are going to try to play this video here. Let's just listen to this. So ignore the chat question that's there. It's incorrect. So just think about what you just heard there, and maybe give a quick answer. If you can go back a slide, please. Thank you. Just in the chat, maybe think about some of the roles that you just saw there. And if you have examples of how some of those players have engaged in your school, or if there's other examples you can think of where someone that's kind of that's not who you would normally think of got engaged and had a role around attendance.
So the question is, what roles of people have you seen engage and support attendance? Our nurse has the most up-to-date contact information. That is great. School nurse rocks. That's fantastic. It is exciting to see that the school nurse is involved in your attendance efforts. That's not necessarily what we find in a lot of places. The database specialist, so that's fantastic because then you know who is tracking to miss too much school and have that information. Any other roles of folks that are active in your schools that help to support attendance? Cafeteria workers, yes, breakfast, absolutely, makes everyone feel welcome. In fact, there's a school that I met the school principal, and he shared that one of his attendance strategies is to invite families in for that morning breakfast along with their children. So it creates a community. It's almost like a community morning meeting that they have every day in the school. And he uses that as an opportunity to update families about what's happening for the day, what's coming up for the week. And he talks about attendance every single day in the morning, the family breakfast. And so that's a really fantastic example. School social workers. I have witnessed students check and connect for attendance with our school nurse, our school counselors. Who else do we have here? I got to see more for that one.
Custodians, bus drivers.
Yes, absolutely. And the environment on the bus can be one that really supports attendance or can discourage kids from coming to school. So bus drivers are essential in this work. And we know that there are bus driver shortages right now. So really thinking through our bus drivers and supporting them because they're part of our community. SROs help with school visits, home visits, and homeroom teachers. So thank you so much for sharing all of those great examples of those people in your community that help to make a difference.
All right, let's go to the next slide. Now we're going to take a quick poll. So let's find out, how are things going in your school? This is a question that is from our team self-assessment that we shared with y'all last time. So the poll is now in the chat, and if you could go and answer the question is, our entire school staff has bought into an all hands on deck approach to attendance, and mark the answer.
Angela, we're getting a little feedback.
I'm not sure what's going on. I am going to try to log in with the different internet connections. So Sue, if you'll pick up for a few minutes while I do that, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure. So we have folks voting in our poll. So far, we have 12% saying that our entire school staff is strongly in place. The majority of folks are saying that there's measurable progress, so you're getting more buy-in from staff. It's a growing effort, and then many of you are saying it needs improvement. We've got to go back this fall and get more folks involved. And what's nice about the self-assessment that this question is pulled from is it really does try to take the approach of progress and measuring where we are in progress towards strong, effective practice to space where we need improvement. So this is not a self-analysis, it's about judgment, but really to say, where are we with this particular element of effective practice and where do we need to grow? And so thank you so much for participating in the poll. If you haven't taken a look at the self-analysis, I encourage you to do so. it could be a tool that you use back in your districts and in your schools to help folks see where they are in a continuum of effective practice. And then you can help to teach them what you learned or what you already know. And then you can use this tool to bring other folks to the table. So thank you so much for participating. Next slide.
All right, I'm back, Sue. Can y'all hear me? Is that better?
It is better.
Okay, great. All right, so now we're gonna have another quick chat. So for those of you who said you were able to get everyone at the table, please share what you've done in the chat that's worked. And for those of you who said it's still a need, which is the majority of you, what do you think might help motivate people to get to the table? So if you got it all figured out, how did you get people there? And if you're still trying to figure it out, what do you think might work?
I'd also encourage, if anybody wants to pop off of mute, if you have a compelling story to share about how you got folks to the table or something that happened that got more people involved, I'd really love to hear the story. So if you have a story to tell, this is your moment. For the person that shared, and I have to go back and find your name, oops.
Yep.
So we have teachers send emails to school social workers at 3, 5, and 7 absences. We also have a team that meets once a week to discuss student concerns. So we have a student roundtable. For the person that talked about the custodian and other folks that get involved with attendance strategies, do you mind coming off chat and sharing a little bit about how that came to be? I think it was Tramika. All right. Well, let's keep going. I don't know if it's hard. Sometimes folks can't get off chat. So I mean, off of mute. So we'll keep going. But we do want to encourage you to continue to think about bringing more folks to the table, getting more folks involved, and using the tools and resources we're sharing to get that whole school community effort going. And Tramika, if you decide to if you do want to share, we'll have time at the end as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Sue. All right, let's go to the next slide. So in our first session, we briefly shared this year-round planning calendar that you see on the screen. And you can use these tools to plan activities and events that focus on the whole year. You can kind of see before start of school year all the way to the end of the year, and it's broken down by tiers. But you can also use this to think about how you want to equip your staff with what they need to do to focus on attendance. So let's go to the next slide. And so you'll see here, we're not going to work on the whole calendar today, but you might think about when during the school year you could provide some professional development and give staff the resources they need to focus on attendance. So think about the traditional professional development opportunities, such as before the start of the school year. I know here in Arkansas, our teachers go back in a week. And so that'll be that week of PD and getting their classrooms set up and all that good stuff. There's also maybe you do a PD right before parent-teacher conferences. But there also might be opportunities for just some bite-sized professional development throughout the year. Maybe there is a staff meeting. We have a colleague that refers to staff meetings as the Park Place of real estate when it comes to meeting time. But maybe you can get a few minutes on there to address an issue. And really, there's really some creative things. In Arkansas, we have required PD each year, a topic. And so one year the topic is family engagement. So a couple years ago, we worked with our state Department of Education, who does video professional development through Arkansas PBS. And we developed the whole session on chronic absence as part of the parent engagement module that year. So let's think for a few minutes. And what do you think that the staff in your buildings, the teachers in your building, what kind of professional development are they going to need to be able to connect with families and have those caring conversations about attendance? What will they need to make that work? I'll just say a few things in the chat. And I see a question from this answer from the last one that I really want to share because it's great. Jenny says that they use data to inform changes, and we've even moved attendance support staff to ensure cultural match with families and neighborhoods. So making sure that the staff person that's talking to the parent is someone that might understand their background and they might relate to.
That is so essential.
And that really goes right into the professional development, as Nancy just said. So having an awareness of the community and its culture. I think I may have mentioned this on a previous training, that in Arkansas, we have a huge Marshallese community. And they come from a culture where time has a really different meaning than we do in our kind of dominant American culture. And so that takes a lot of conversations with families.
You're getting a little fuzzy again, Angela. I just wanted to share. But I appreciate the point that you were lifting up about the Marshallese. It got worse. Now it's better. Now there's no fuzziness. It's very exciting. Knowledge of state laws, district policies related to attendance. So making sure our school community, when they're reaching out and engaging students and families around attendance, that they understand the basic expectations that are required. Makes a lot of sense. An awareness of community and its culture. Is there anything else? Fostering an open environment, absolutely. An empathetic, non-judgmental ear is essential. I will say when Angela and I started this work in Arkansas many years ago, we really did hear a lot of parent blame come from school leaders and other school-based staff that we were working with. And we had to develop specific PD exercises to help to tease out the biases and really encourage people to see the students and families that they were working with for the humans that they are, and to recognize that we all have challenges that we come with that sometimes get in the way of attendance, and that our goal is to build relationships and understand what they are. Yes?
Yes?
Aveen, did you need me for something?
No, I think someone's unmuted. So.
Oh, okay. And so it does require that open environment that you were talking about, Henry. It does require really specific conversations within a safe space, within our staff, to unpack what our biases are, to really understand where we may be coming to these conversations with some judgment so that we can let them go and then really connect with students and families and meet them where they are. Jenny says we have to understand the challenges that families are facing. For example, homelessness. They have a number of students that are doubled up or living with other people and families. And the challenges with that, right? Sharing beds, sleeping on a couch, sharing one bathroom among multiple families can make it so that it's extraordinarily challenging to get to school on time or to show up at all. So thank you, Jenny, for sharing that. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Angela, and you're not fuzzy anymore, so that's good news.
Okay, well, let me know if I get fuzzy again and I'll turn my camera off. That might help. So, all right, so we are going to talk about some ways we can equip people to know when to say something, what to say, and how to say it. Okay, next slide. So caring conversations is what we're going to talk about, and they really are a key component of every tier. So there are conversations that we have with every student or every family, like parent-teacher conferences, and we want to figure out how to do those in the best way. There are, when we get into tier 2, those students that are beginning to be at risk or starting to be chronically absent. We want to think about how to approach that conversation with families. And then finally, in tier 3, when things may be very intense and we have to involve lots of players to help the family, we still want to think about how we're communicating. All right, next slide. So we want to make attendance part of our regular communication with all families and all students. But we want to make sure we tailor the conversation to the level of attendance. And so by doing this, it really gets us in the habit of talking about attendance regularly in whatever conversation we have. So starting with green, satisfactory attendance. We want to, if a student is there regularly, let's reinforce that. It's always good to have the positive conversation before you have to get to a challenging one down the road. When we start to see absences add up, if there's students who are at risk or chronically absent, then we can start to layer additional questions into our conversations. So, what's going on? Why are, is there something that's making it difficult to get to school every day? How can we help? What are some of the barriers you're experiencing? And then finally, when things get more serious, adding other people into the conversation, social workers, counselors, and maybe even people outside of the building. Okay, next slide. So remember we talked about this last week, and really this is a way to think about, if you're getting ready to have a conversation, you want to quickly check the attendance and see where the family is. And remember that chronic absence is a rate. And you can always divide, you can look at the number of days a student has missed. You can look at how many days where you are in the school year and do a quick calculation. And so, for example, if it's the 40th day of the school year, basically about 2 months into the school year, and a student has missed 4 days, all you have to do is 4 divided by 40, and you can see that that student is at 10%. So they are already chronically absent, and it lets you figure out where to focus the conversation. Okay, next slide. All right, so caring conversations it's a 5-step process, as you see here: learn, share, inform, discuss, and then arrive at a plan. And really the whole purpose of this process is to try to take a problem-solving approach, but in a very positive way, and to end with a plan for attendance. So when we're pressed for time, we tend to kind of jump right in the middle. We want to say, hey, your kid's missing school, what can we do? But it's really important to start earlier in the conversation more positively, or we immediately put parents on the defensive. Okay, next slide. All right, so the first step is learn. And depending on the age of the child, your conversation may be with the student, him or herself, or it may be with the parent, or maybe even both, depending on the situation. We have student-led parent-teacher conferences at some of our school districts in Arkansas, so you could have both there. But really, in the learn, it's really, you're focusing on, what are your dreams for your child? Asking the student, where do you want to go after you graduate from high school? Where do you see yourself? What do you want to be? And then the next thing is share. And so after you've heard about what's important to the parent, you can also then reflect back and say, well, Johnny is a joy in class. He listens, he's focused, he's there. Or, Susie really works well with other students and helps someone else who's struggling. So whatever it is that you can share to that parent that, hey, your child's got something really positive going on. Okay, next slide. The third step is inform. So then you can start to talk about the attendance issues. And so, again, you want to tailor it to where they are in terms of satisfactory, at risk, chronic, or severe. You might want to use something like this calendar here. And this is part of our student success plan. So this is something you can easily grab and use. And so you can highlight on there all the days that student's missed. And, as Sue shared, and I think it was in the first session, some of the research, parents, we don't always keep track of it. And we may just be thinking, oh, my kid's only missed a day or two here or there. But if you see it on paper and go, oh, gosh, yes, they really have missed a lot. You might also look for patterns. So are you seeing that every Thursday or lots of Thursdays a student's missing? Maybe that's the night, Wednesday night is the night that one of their parents that has custody only one night a week has them. So is there a pattern that's going on there? And then really just making the connection back to attendance. It's not a truancy issue. It's not about checking boxes. For the parent, it's, hey, if they're missing every Thursday, that's the day we do, this class, and your child is missing out. Okay, next slide. All right, and then this fourth step is discuss. And that's trying to figure out what's going on. You want to find out, what's happening. Why are they missing? Is the child having a stomach ache, every Friday morning because that's when they have a quiz in something? Or, is a child not wanting to go to school because they're being bullied by somebody? Whatever it is, you want to really listen to the parent, ask questions, and try to figure out what's going on. Okay, next slide. All right, and then finally, you want to arrive at a plan. And so when you do this, it's not just about what the family can do, it's what the school can do. And you want it to be a two-way street. We're jointly working together to educate this child. What can we do together? And as you can see here, this is our the student success plan that I talked about a few minutes ago. And you can use this to, I think someone, if you wouldn't mind checking mute.
Office.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And this is just a way to help document. And there's a really interesting, there's a lot of work right now on behavioral science, behavioral economics, behavioral insights. And what you're hearing more and more, that no matter what the topic is, if it's dieting or exercise or attendance, we're most likely to follow through on something if we, number one, say it out loud. 2, write it down. 3, sign it. Say, yes, I say I will do this. And then lastly, that there's a plan to get back together and review. And so it's about behavior, it's about accountability, but what motivates people to stick to what they say they're going to do. Okay, next slide. So here is a tool. This is a worksheet that you can use and others in your building can use just to kind of plan a conversation with a family. And so it's really nice because the key point side just kind of, gives you what you should be doing. And then you can kind of use the right side to think about what you want to say to the family. Okay, next slide. All right, Sue, are we still going to do our role play?
I think we are. And then as we're doing our role play, keep in mind that we're going to go into a breakout session where you can talk about this process and how it's helpful, who could be involved in caring conversations, and then what would it take to increase the capacity of others to take. And so we're going to demonstrate the difference really that it makes when we take this approach versus not. So Angela is going to be the parent. She is a parent, so it won't be too difficult. I'm going to be the teacher. I'm not a teacher, but I'm going to try anyway, because that's a very hard job. So we're going to start with what not to do, and then we'll move to the caring conversations approach. So Ms. Duran, really appreciate that you could make it today.
Thank you. I had to take off some time, and I'm not getting paid right now, so I'm a little nervous about that, but thank you.
Well, it's important because we're really noticing that Matthew's attendance is a problem. And, I wanted to inform you that he's missed a lot of school, and we're seeing those days add up, and we're just really concerned about his absence. So I hear that it was tough to take off today, but we needed you here to talk about this because it's a real problem. Can you talk with me about what's going on? Why is Matthew missing so much school?
Well, I'm working 2 jobs right now, and it's really hard. And, sometimes, I'm going from one job to the other, and I just can't get him here. I've got to put food on the table. I've got to keep a roof over our head.
Wow. Yeah, no, I hear you, and that's true. But we need to figure something out. Like Matthew he's missing enough school that we're noticing that his grades are falling. We're concerned about him keeping up with his other classmates. And so what can we do to solve this problem? So if you're having a hard time getting him to school, is there someone else that can help? What can we do to support you? What can we do to figure this out?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, my mother can't drive anymore. My husband, he's been gone for a long time. I just don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Okay. So that felt so bad. Let's start over. It did. I felt really bad about coming at you like that. Let's try the Caring Conversations approach and see if that feels a little bit better. So, hi, Mr. Rand. Really appreciate your making the time to be here today. Thank you so much. I just wanted to take this time to connect with you, to learn more about you and Matthew and how things are going this year. Can you talk a little bit about how things are going? What's going on with Matthew? What does he really enjoy about school? I really do appreciate your time today.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, I mean, he loves art. That's really his most favorite thing. He loves to just doodle and draw. I know he talks about Mr. Baker and how much he loves Mr. Baker, the art teacher.
Oh, that's great. We do notice that sometimes if he's, he really does enjoy English class a lot, but we also see that sometimes when we're doing story time, he'll start to illustrate those stories, and he adds to the stories and really brings such a creative flair to the work. And so we do see that he enjoys art class, but we've also noticed that he's bringing his art and his love for art into the other subjects we're learning as well. And we just so appreciate his creativity. And Mr. Baker has shared in staff meetings just what a delight Matthew is to have in class. And so thank you for sharing that. And we see that here, and we just love him. We just think he's just such a lovely, creative spirit. However, we wanted to share with you, and again, I do appreciate you being here. We are concerned, Mr. Rand. We have noticed that he's missed, about 6 days of school, and we're only into the second month of school. So those absences are really adding up very quickly. And we wanted to do something now to interrupt those absences. Is there something more going on? Can you talk to us about what's happening that's making it hard for Matthew to get to school every day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really struggling right now. My husband left. We're living with my mom, but she's elderly, and I'm working 2 jobs, and I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how to get him to school. We live too close to school to get the bus. That won't work. I'm just struggling to figure out sometimes how to get him there.
First of all, I'm sorry that your husband left. I can't imagine how that feels. And so I just want to say that. But to focus on Matthew for just a moment. Do you have relationships with any other families in the neighborhood that maybe could help to get him to school in the morning? Or is that something that perhaps we could help with and helping to connect you to someone else who lives close and heading in the same direction?
Yeah, I mean, we live in an apartment building, and now that I think about it, yeah, there's a family just down the hall that has a little boy in his class. I mean, maybe she could walk him to school in the morning, and maybe I could pick him up in the afternoon. Maybe we could try that.
Do you know her? Is she someone that you trust or someone that you have a relationship with, or do you need us to help with that?
No, the kids have played together some. I haven't met her yet, but I bet I could build on that.
Okay. Do you want to make that the first step to try and help to get Matthew to school? And the reason it's just so essential is that he's missing valuable instructional time, and we miss him. We miss his creative spirit when he's not there. He brings such value to the class, and we also want to make sure that he's staying on track academically. And so when students miss a lot of school, even in elementary school, it really does get in the way of their learning. And so we do want to solve this. It sounds like you want to reach out to that parent as a first step. Do you want to check back in like a week? We could do a quick phone conversation at a time that's convenient for you and see how that's going. And if that doesn't work out, then we can come up with an alternative plan.
Yeah, I think that's good. My second job gets over about 2:00 in the afternoon. So, and then that's when I'll pick up the kids. So maybe we could just touch base on the phone after I get everybody home.
Okay, that's great. And then she might appreciate sharing the responsibility if she's going both ways, and you're offering to help to bring her child home, then maybe it'll like blossom into a really fruitful relationship for all of you. But do keep us updated. We'll check back in a week when you get back from your second job. And again, we really do appreciate Matthew. We appreciate you making time to have this conversation, and we'll get back in touch in a week.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Bye. So there's a difference between how it feels, even for me personally as the teacher in this moment, and how I felt coming into that conversation at the inform stage versus the learn stage. And I think we do it with the best intention, right? We have not a lot of time. We have a deep concern around attendance, and we jump right in and start to talk about absences. And the challenge with that is that it puts folks on the defensive. And so we really do want to shift the conversation, shift the dynamic so that we can avoid defensiveness if possible. It still is a tough conversation a lot of times, but at least create the space for some sharing and connection before we get to a part that's more challenging. So what we're going to do, and how are we on time, Angela? Do you know?
We're actually pretty good.
Okay, so we're going to go into breakout conversations. We got about 8 minutes in our conversations, and just talk among yourselves. What do you think about this process? Do you think it's helpful? Who do you think could use this process as part of their conversations with families? And then what would it take to increase capacity so that more people take a caring conversations approach to talking about attendance? And Aveen, are you going to step in and let us know how we're doing the breakouts?
Yes, I am currently creating that breakout room. It's going to automatically assign you. If you're not automatically assigned, please click the join button. Give me 1 minute. I'm creating that room now. I've also added the link to the document that you've shared on facilitating those types of discussions. So everyone is have been assigned to a room as of now. I'm getting ready to open those rooms so you can go in for those discussion. I am setting the timer on that room for 8 minutes. And once your 8 minutes is up, it will ask you to rejoin the main room. And that's the button. Instead of leaving, it's going to say rejoin, or it's automatically going to put you back in this room. So let me open that room. Give me a minute, and I am starting the rooms now. Rooms are open. They're opening. Everyone's leaving the main session.
I didn't leave, so am I supposed to be in this session?
I'm going to add you since you, there's one room that's still opening.
Okay.
So if you don't, that's the last room. Okay, let me add you to a room. I am trying to add you to a room. Hmm. Do you see the join button at the top? Gina, Deetra?
No,
Jenny?
I do not see a join button.
Okay. I'm looking for your name. Ooh, I'm getting an error saying that the meeting cannot assign you to a room. Are you joined through the app or through the link?
I am joined through the link.
Yeah, sometimes it causes a little difficulty for some reason.
But it's an app on my computer.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to join a room, and if you can click on that. Did it come up?
Yes.
Okay, and you can join that room. And Jenny, I did the same thing. I asked you to join a room, and it's calling you now to join that room.
Hi, everybody.
All right,
Hi.
welcome back. All right, so I think I could tell that people were starving for conversation because we had a great chat in the group that I was in. But now we're a little bit behind, so I think we're going to just keep moving. I did want to point out, and Aveen put this in the chat. Actually, go back one. Okay, and if everyone could put themselves on mute, that would be great. Thank you. So there is a resource, and if you can't get the link that's in the chat, don't worry about that. Aveen is going to send out a follow-up with lots of resources, all the resources we've referred to here. But this is a really good step-by-step thing on how to do the caring conversations. All right, well, thank y'all for that. All right, let's move on to the next slide then now. All right, so how do we build or rebuild trust between families and schools? And this is called the cycle of effective personalized communication. So let's say we start with caring conversations, which is up there just to the left of noon. And as you see, as you keep going around, if you have the conversations, then you're going to identify the needs and know what's going on. And then that leads to being, if you're effective, you're going to provide that immediate help or an explanation of the next step. That in turn leads to a more trusting relationship with the families and then to a deeper sense of partnership. And so it's just a cycle that reinforces itself as you go on and on and on. But what happens if the cycle breaks down? And let's look at the next slide. So let's think about that cycle, and just in the chat, what might cause the cycle to break down and what can school teams do to keep it going? So Sue says failing to follow through on our side when we make a commitment. So yes, if we identify the needs and say we're going to do something, but we don't do it, then the family's like, well, great. All right, yes, not following. Okay, here's another one, a barrier where you aren't sure how to help. And so you're like, oh my gosh, I can't, they've named this problem and I can't fix it. Yes, that could definitely happen. And it's why we need to find many partners outside of the school. Fatigue on the part of struggling families. Yes, even if sometimes if you can have a caring conversation and come up with a solution, if the next day she gets evicted, it may be really hard to focus on what she needs to do. That's right. Or he. So what if you have a staff person that just hasn't bought into this? They're like, oh, this is too touchy-feely. Parents just need to get their act together. Yeah, that can make it difficult. Yeah, loss of job, anything, any crisis of the day that can happen to families who are living with limited resources, that makes it hard to follow through. All right, well, thank y'all so much. All right, well, I think I'm going to pass it on to Sue now.
Thank you, Angela, for leading us through that. It's really, really useful tool and resource. So we're going to shift now from the internal community to the external community and start to talk about bringing those folks to the table as well. One thing that has been made clear from this past year is that schools cannot and should not do this alone and carry the burden of addressing all of the factors that make it hard for families and students to get to school every day. And one person, I think it was Nancy, mentioned in the chat that it is really difficult when a parent or a family member brings up an issue that is making it hard for their child to get to school and we do not have the resources to address it. Like that is, I think, one of the most burdensome things that make it hard for us to act. And I think it is also why many of us don't ask families and students what's going on, because we don't want to open the door. Because if we open the door and we ask what's happening, then it's our responsibility to then step in and provide help. And so not opening the door and not asking protects us from having to then figure out what to do. But we can't do that anymore. We have to open the door, we have to ask. And so that does mean figuring out who is our array of community partners that can assist us in bringing in resources for engagement and for support and just for helping our families and our students who are struggling mightily in this moment. Next slide. When, as we move into this content, we just want to take a quick poll to get a sense of where you are currently with community partners and public agencies as partners and providing support for students and families in your schools and in your district. So currently, how would you say that presents? Are partnerships strongly in place? Has there been measurable progress? Or is it an urgent gap? And Avine's going to pop the poll in, and we'll do a quick feel, and then we'll move into conversation around this issue.
Right. Poll is there and people are responding.
Sue, do you see the poll? It's in the chat.
I do. Thank you. I just pulled it up. So we have, and we're in the sort of the same place again. We have some folks saying, you know, we've seen real measurable progress on this. So more partners coming to the table, more partners being engaged. And then other folks saying like this is an area where we need improvement. We have to figure out who those partners are and get them engaged. And this is new. We have a few folks even saying this is an urgent gap, and we haven't seen that before. So this is an area perhaps that as we enter into this new school year, that we really start to explore deeply, because we know that families have struggled even more than they have in the past, that this past year and a half have only added to the burdens for many families. And so this is a moment where if we don't have partners, or if we need to make progress on partnerships, this is the moment to do that. And I would also offer that this is probably the moment that our community-based partners are looking for ways to provide support and wanting somebody to ask them to help out. And so making those connections is going to be essential. We will thank you for weighing in. We'll move on to the next slide. For the person that said partnerships are strongly in place, we want you, and when we get to the parking lot moment, if you could share and talk about those partnerships and how they were developed, we'd really appreciate it. So keep that in your hat, and we're going to ask you to share when we get to the end. So when the greater the size of the attendance challenge, the more partners that we need. We need to do what we need to do what we can and take ownership of what we're responsible for. And we also know that to really make a difference, that we have to bring in partners to help us in the areas where we don't have expertise or we don't have the resources. So really doing that needs assessment, understanding the challenges that students and families are facing, and then saying, okay, this is what we have in our school to help those students and families based on what's happening. This is what we have in our district to help students and families based on what we're hearing. And this is where we're missing. This is where we have gaps. Maybe we have gaps around feeding programs. Maybe we have gaps around resources for clothing or school supplies. Or maybe we have gaps around transportation. But wherever you see the need or the burden and a lack of capacity within our system, that's where we start with our partners. We have to be creative about both partners that we develop and how we engage them. For example, businesses can help to supply resources for families that are struggling with supplies for the beginning of the school year. We have organizations that can support families with mentorships and also students with mentorships. So thinking expansively about who's out there in the community and what are the resources that we need to really engage and support every student in being able to be in school every day. The next slide. When we think about this work of organizing and building a community of support around attendance, we think about it in this way. we put the result in the center of our work. So the result or the goal that we're looking for is that every child can attend school every day and every child wants to attend school every day. So the can is about there's no barriers in the way. And the want is about that community feeling, the engagement, the support, the love, the recognition that what's happening in school will help me succeed later in life. So the can and the want. So we identify the groups of students or group of students that are missing the most school. And we say, who are they? Are they our rising ninth graders? Are they our repeat 10th graders? Are they a certain group of students that live in an area of the community that makes it harder for them to get to school? So really knowing who that is, and then mapping our partners in relationship to that group of students that are struggling the most. So we identify our existing assets, our existing resources. What do we already have to bring to bear in supporting these students and families? And then we ask the question, well, who else do we need at the table? What other partnerships can we bring in, given what we know about who's struggling the most and what their specific needs are? And then we figure out how to go and engage those folks. A number of you mentioned that you have pastors and local churches that really participate and support your students and families. Others of you might consider that. A number of you mentioned Department of Juvenile Services or Justice engaging and supporting students and families. That is a unique relationship where you have a positive approach in partnership with those folks. Others may need to engage and get that positive relationship going. Department of Social Services can be a valuable partner in the work and help to bring resources, temporary cash assistance, and other resources to families that are struggling, helping to prevent the lights from being turned off, helping to make sure that the water is turned on. All of those agency-specific issues that make it hard for students to show up, some of these other folks, the departments of health, the county department of health, can help to bring support and resources. So one thing we do know about this work is that having a table where our partners can convene and talk about their role is essential. So once we identify our partners, once we identify the challenges that we know we need help with, making sure we're convening those partners at least monthly to have conversations about how it's going, what we're seeing in the data, what we're hearing from students and families, what the agency's experiences are or the community-based support partners are in helping to bring resources and support to families, so that you're convening regularly around the goal of helping students to be able to attend school every day. Ginny said she believes that the greatest challenge is communication. We have unused resources. Absolutely. There's both the issue of we have not enough resources to support all our students and families. And simultaneously, the resources we do have don't get fully utilized or leveraged. And so we have to ensure that we're maximizing the resources that we do have in place and then identifying where the gaps are so we can bring in additional resources. So thank you, Jenny, for sharing that. What is a systems navigator? That is someone who, if a lot of times families have a real, it's hard to navigate public systems, fill out all the appropriate paperwork. And honestly, there were federal changes and rules around programs and filling out paperwork. So prior to the last administration, if you were eligible for particular federal programs, then you were automatically entitled to other federal programs that help to support families with the highest level of need. That ended, and I don't think it's been fixed yet. And so now when you apply for, say, temporary cash assistance or food stamps, you don't automatically get enrolled in Medicaid or other federal programs. So you have to fill out all those different pieces of paperwork. You have to go to multiple Department of Social Services meetings. And so for some families, it's just really difficult, especially if families speak English as a second language, if families have lower levels of reading attainment, if families are working multiple jobs. And so really supporting families and accessing those resources, making sure that they know the steps that are necessary to fill out all the appropriate paperwork, making sure they know where to go. following up with them and encouraging them, because sometimes it can just be burdensome. And at times you can even feel judged to go when you go and ask for the help that you need. It doesn't always, it doesn't feel good. And so having that navigator, having that advocate, having that person just step in and support families that are going through this process of getting the help that they need can be really essential in ensuring that they're fully accessing all the resources that are available. So speaking to Jenny's concern about leaving resources on the table, navigators can help to ensure that doesn't happen. So when we think about results in the center, we're looking at this example here. So for example, if the desired goal is that all students at Daisy Bates Academy attend school every day, who are our partners? And we think about them by sector. Logically, we would start with the school and the district, since they are the closest to the students and they're the closest to us. So we have the most direct access to the resources in our schools and in our district. We have to identify who the staff are that support the work. Are there particular departments or units in the district that work with our students and families? And in my experience, and I'm sure you've had this experience as well, attendance within a district can sometimes seem like it's its own department doing its own set of work, not necessarily connected to nutrition services, not necessarily connected to Title I, not necessarily connected to transportation, academic and engagement, social and emotional learning, early education. All of these other departments sit separately from attendance. But the challenge or the opportunity is that each one of these departments are essential to the attendance folks achieving their goal, which is that children are in school every day. And so sometimes we just have to break down the silos and the barriers in our own districts to get the results that we're looking for, which is that students and families have the support they need to get to school every day. And if it means walking down the hallway or picking up the phone and calling the head of transportation because a student needs their transportation situation resolved, sometimes that's what it takes. Over time, as we work to break down those silos in our systems, really encouraging us to create a space monthly or bi-weekly even, where these folks come together and look at the data together and talk together about their work and how it intersects around this issue of attendance. The folks that are in charge of behavior and suspension policy, looking at their suspension data and really exploring whether or not students are being over-suspended and pushed out of school is an essential conversation. So we have to break down our own silos, work collectively as a team at the district level. We've got to break down our silos at schools so that we're working collectively as a team at the school level. And then we can start to engage our external partners and bring them in, because we're all working collectively and together and collaborating toward the goal of every child has the opportunity to succeed and be their best selves. So we have to identify in the system who our partners are and external to the system. When we start to look at other sectors outside of our own districts and schools, we can identify school-based agencies, the faith community, out-of-school time program providers, and community-based organizations. Next slide. Once you identify partners and organizations, we want to be clear about what contribution we're looking for from them. What do we expect them to contribute to helping us achieve our goal that every child can and wants to attend school every day? So when we think about out-of-school time program providers, what is their role in supporting attendance? Are they a conduit for communication to families about the value of attendance? Are they an organization that perhaps can be a place where we directly connect students who are missing a lot of school, for whom we think deeper engagement and access to enrichment will improve their attendance? So exploring really connecting children that are missing too much school to after school and to out of school time as a way to further engage them and get them excited about being in school is another place to sort of say, like, what's the role of this partner? So for each partner that you want to recruit, getting really clear about what your ask is, so that when you do approach them, You can share with them your concerns about what's happening with students and families, and then you can share what you think they can contribute to helping to solve problems and really invite them to be part of the solution making. The other element of engaging partners is ensuring that they see their aligned interest in this. So that sounds complicated, but the reality is that people come to the table and do good work together because they are being asked, they understand what you need from them, they can provide that resource, they have it available to bring to the table, and they see it in their self-interest. And so part of our work in engaging others to get involved in this effort with us is helping them to understand why it matters to them, why it matters to them as a religious community, why it matters to them as a social services agency, why it matters to them as the transportation department. All of that is essential because otherwise folks are going to be less likely to engage or stay in it for the long haul or be as present as you need them to be. But if they understand why it's in their self-interest to be part of this dialogue, then they're more likely to stay engaged and bring their full selves to the conversation. We're going to go back into small group. And Angela, how much time do we have?
We actually don't have time to do the small group.
All right, we're going to encourage you to take this exercise back to your districts and to your schools if you're at the district level or if you're at the school level, and use these resources to begin to map out your partners. So begin with who do we already have, and then explore who else do we need, and then come up with a plan for outreach and engagement. Who's going to contact the Department of Social Services? Who do we know there that we can have a conversation with? And then what's the next steps around getting them engaged in supporting us and helping our students and families have access and who's going to reach out to them and ask them to help us support students and families so that their child can and wants to be in school every day. So it's an essential conversation to have, and we really do encourage you to utilize the resources here to have those conversations back in your districts and schools. Next slide. We want to remind us that our goal, our work here is to remove barriers to attendance. So when we think about the reasons for absence, we have to think about the potential interventions and then who the possible partners are. So this sort of graphic here lays out specific ideas around if a family is experiencing lack of connectivity, if parents' work schedules are such that it's hard for them to get their child to school in the morning or pick them up at the end of the day, then what are the resources we can bring to help to make that easier? If there's an issue around healthcare, how can we help to ensure families have a medical home, that they have a pediatrician that is their child's pediatrician, that they have access to insurance or Medicaid so that their child can get the care that he or she needs. Next slide. When we think about
That's me too.
team functions, Angela is going to jump in and help us think about that.
Thank you. All right, if you can mute, I think that'll stop the echo. All right, great. All right, so just real quickly, we want to talk about the last team function. And it is, actually, you can go back. Go back, please. All right. So really, it's about periodically assessing whether you're making a difference or not, or how much of a difference you're making. So with each intervention and strategy, we want to think about if it's working, how can we do more of it? If it kind of works, how can we improve what we're doing so we can do it better? And then if it doesn't work, why are we spending time and resources on it? Okay, next slide. So when we're taking stock and looking back, we really want to answer 4 key questions, and we try to give you an example for each one. So, number 1, how much did we do? So maybe we picked a mentoring strategy, but we only did it for 10 students, and we had identified 50 students that were at risk or already chronically absent. So maybe now that we know it works for 10, let's bump it up. A second question is, how well do we do it? So what if we develop this great plan about communicating about the holidays and making sure that people don't, plan vacations during the holidays? Well, we didn't start that campaign until December the 10th. If we do it that late, then families will have already made their reservations to go back home to Mexico or wherever they're going for the holidays, and we will have done all that work for probably little effect. A third question is, what difference did we make for the students who got the support? And so, maybe we find that we did something and, oh my gosh, we reduced absences on average by 8 days a semester and moved 30 students from being chronically absent to having satisfactory attendance. Then that's terrific. And we might even find that their grades have improved as a result. So that's real quantifiable difference that we see we've made. And then the last thing, what was the impact on the school as a whole? And so, did we bring, our overall chronic absence rate down by a couple of points? Did we see an increase in our test scores? Those are all things that we can see to see how they impact on the school overall. All right, the next slide. So all of this fits within a PDSA cycle, a plan, do, study, act cycle. And so when we're thinking about the questions we were just talking about, how much, how well, what difference did we make? All of those allow us to keep this cycle going because they're all part of assessing. And so then you move into analyzing the causes, then choosing a strategy and just moving around the circle. And it keeps, just like the cycle of communication we talked about earlier, it just keeps reinforcing itself over time. All right. So just a few quick things to share with y'all. There is a broader attendance awareness campaign for 2021. As you can see, it's themed Rebound with Attendance. There are a couple of webinars that have already happened. These are national webinars that Attendance Works is doing, but they have all been recorded, and you can go to the Attendance Works websites if you want to look at one or two. And then there's one coming up just next week, and then another one in September. But the national, if you've enjoyed these webinars over the last few weeks, these national webinars are a great way to kind of continue to stay plugged in. All right, next slide. There's also a toolkit that talks about many of the things we've talked about and more. That's really about gearing up to this new school year. You can see, the spring stuff, we've passed that, but we're still in the summer and the fall is to come. And so just give you some nice different strategies to think about as well. All right. Next slide. All right. So we would love for your feedback. We've loved the feedback you've provided the last two sessions. They've really helped us to think about how to structure these sessions. So please, and if someone can drop that, Aveen, thank you, has dropped the link in the chat. We'd love for you to provide your feedback on today's session. And then I think we are ready for questions. And I think let's go ahead and stop the recording now. And we've got a small enough group that I think people can take themselves off mute. And if you have questions, if there's something you wanted to share earlier that you didn't get a chance to,